Hi guys, let's get on with it. So once again, good evening to everyone, including Achal, and thank you for your patience. Achal, let's start. First of all, thank you very much for doing this. We
My
and
pleasure,
everyone
my
at
pleasure.
FinTree really appreciate your time. There's a lot of curiosity about what you do, Achal. Like I'll tell you, 70% of the kids who come to us, they come and say, fund manager banna hai, right? One day my dream is to become a fund manager. I want to have a career in equity research. I think that's what everyone says. And I think after today's session, we hope that people will have crystal clarity on how the equity research career works, right? That's the whole reason why we're doing this. So Achal, let's start with you first. So give us our audience a little bit of background on what you're doing these days, a little bit about your journey so far.
So currently, I am working with an institutional investor on the in their research team. So whatever best equity research can be, like what people want to, I am on that path. I won't say I'm there yet, but I'm there. For fund manager, even I'm not there yet. I'm still an analyst, but wanting to be, hoping to be soon. So that is where I am. As far as my journey goes, so I am basically from Pune. I am like working in Bombay right now, but I come from Pune, and that's how I know even FinTree. So I've completed my CA, CFA, CFA. I did it with FinTree, and post my CFA itself, my first job itself was into equity research. So
Hmm.
I started with a wealth management firm. There it was a kind of a sector agnostic role. From there, that was in Pune itself, wanting to scale up and get more exposure and actually be on the street, what they call it, the street. So with those aspirations, was started looking out for jobs in Bombay. In Bombay, directly getting into the buy. So the job I was doing in Pune was, you can call it to be a buy side job, but getting into Bombay based on, like, I was a fresher, and like it's difficult to crack in there, especially when you're shifting your base. You have a certain uh, like a financial base also, to which minimum you want to get in there if you want to be at par what you are doing at Pune. So matching all those things, I landed up a job in equity research, yes, but the institutions that would want to take me in and who would also pay me at the level I wanted to was the sell side that time. So I had to make that shift. My second job was in Bombay then. I was working with an institutional sell side brokerage house. So there, my role became sector specific. It was niche specialist. It was into the pharma sector. So for the last 3 years, I have been doing pharmaceuticals. In that, or in the last 1 year, we also took up chemicals as a sector along with pharmaceuticals for our coverage. And very recently, like a month back, I have made my move from sell side to buy side now. Like now in Bombay on the institutional side, जहाँ पे नहीं हो पा रहा था 3 साल, अब हो गया मतलब. So now I'm here finally.
So
Yes.
congratulations on your new move,
Thank, thank you.
Achal. So a lot of these guys who are listening to us today, uh, they want to be in finance, but they still in their early days, right? At least a big chunk of the audience. So a lot of things that the words that you use, तो थोड़ा ऐसे bouncer चला गया. So let's
अच्छा.
break it down step by step. So let's start with help us understand what is a buy side and what is a sell
Okay.
side.
Okay. So let me start what equity research is.
Oh, fantastic, even better.
Equity research basically is you dedicating the work hours of your day into researching into the listed equities, like the listed stocks. Now, again, on a broader level, this can be catering to the Indian markets, or it could be even to the international markets. So those are like the outsourced jobs, the way we have it in IT. The same way there is a big enough field in equity research for the offshore markets as well, where you sit here and you give a backend kind of a support in research, a backend support, but in research to the analysts who are sitting onshore there, and that is and help them track and cover and do research on the listed equity, probably in the US markets, Europe market. So that is one side of it. The second side of it is,
We can, sorry, I'm interrupting you,
yeah,
but we can call them as KPOs. Is that a part of KPO?
yeah, that would be KPOs. Yeah, and
Okay.
I like interrupt me as much as you want to, because I daily deal with people around my field, so I will have certain assumptions when I talk. So
Thank you
whenever
for
I'm
allowing
using
me
a
to do
term,
it.
yeah, do it quite often, because I wouldn't know where to stop. Yeah. So that those would be KPOs, and that is also called as an equity research analyst role or associate role. The second part of it is doing it in India for the Indian stocks, for the Indian markets. That is what the domestic market is. In terms of, like, if I'm to structure it into back end, middle office, and front end, doing it for those KPOs becomes back end. I
Mm.
wouldn't call it even middle office, because very seldom even your name would be there on the report that gets published, because you are giving Excel help and other sort of research help, desk help basically for your research. When you are doing it for the domestic market, it becomes a middle office to a front end job. Now, why would I say middle office and front end? If you're an associate, you start again, you cater the needs of your lead analyst, the your boss basically, who is the lead, the head of that sector in that organization. So as you keep scaling up and you keep growing up, slowly you start talking to clients. That you can call it to be front office. Now, all this what I said in equity research, this was sell side. This was us doing the research to service someone. When we do the research to invest ourselves. When I say ourselves, it could be your employer as well. Like, I'm working with an institution and I am doing equity research today to directly help my employer make the investment, put in the money. That becomes the buy side of equity research. So sell side equity research is when you sell your services of equity research. Buy side equity research is termed as the section of equity research where you are directly helping the investment decision. You are part of the investment decision. That becomes the buy side equity research. So that is what the
Understood.
difference is. Yeah.
So just so that I understand this properly, let's say if I'm working with a broker, and by the way, enjoy your coffee.
Thanks.
So
Thanks for that.
we are working with a broker, and we I'm writing a research report. So we see a lot of these research reports on the internet, right? Let's say HDFC brokerage or any random brokerage. Then we can call it as a sell side report. A
Yeah,
broker
because
issuing a report.
those reports, anybody who wants to make an investment, they are not going to write a report and give it to the entire public to give out
Hmm.
their investment thesis. Then what edge do they have, right?
Hmm.
Anytime you see something published and
Hmm.
for mass consumption, that is basically somebody servicing you with that piece of paper.
Hmm.
Now, whenever that is service, that becomes sell side. So
Right.
these research reports are for the buy side folks to
Hmm.
use their research, and so that they can make their investment decisions. So that is how it operates.
Understood. So typically a brokerage will write a report and then they will share it to a buy side analyst who probably, let's say, will work with a asset management company, let's say a mutual fund. So
Yeah,
the analyst on the buy side will receive the reports and then analyst will make use of those reports for investment decision making.
right,
तो
right.
फिर buy side वाला analyst क्या कर रहा है?
So, a very good question. And actually, even that's something that even I used to think before कि यार, like, job तो same ही है, मतलब what exactly is the difference? But the difference is there are many brokers out there on the street, right? So a lot of brokers are doing their individual research, servicing AMC now, and it's an AMC's job to probably look, like, do their own research, as well as take the help of these people who are servicing. You
Hmm.
can say that uh, basically a buy side guy like is has access to what many people are thinking on the street, but has to make their own decision and then take a call. So, and in on a practical level, how is it different? A sell side analyst is a very specialist. Like, one sell side analyst can barely cover more than 2 sectors or 3 sectors. But whereas a buy side analyst or a sell side guy can maximum have a coverage on 15 stocks or 20 stocks. Like that's the stocks they will track, and that consumes their time, and even that becomes quite hectic if you're like because you have to, because it's a cutthroat competitive market, the kind of depth you need to stand out and the level of servicing that you need to spend your time in even servicing the client. So the time becomes limited there. On buy side, that's not how large the team is. In buy side, the team sizes are small. So one analyst is going to cover multiple sectors. So you can say they become more of a generalist when you come into a buy side. Now again, maybe there is a deep thing that there are career analysts even on the buy side when the AMC is big enough to have those senior level analysts.
So
But
dedicated
let's
guys for a
yeah,
sector.
dedicated guys for a sector. But yeah, that's the broader difference. So in buy side, your scope improves, like your scope range increases. Probably the depth goes a little shallow. Ideally, even that shouldn't be the case because you are actually the person who is responsible for the money. But then the depth is taken care by the sell side guys because you talk to them. They want to service you. So it's not that you're missing out on the depth, but it's somebody else doing your work for. That is how it is.
Right. So just again, so let's say that there is an asset management company. Let's say they're managing small AMC, maybe managing 20 or 1,000 crore rupees, running an equity fund. So the fund manager will have a team of 4 to 5 buy side analysts for a 20,000 crore,
Yeah.
right? Okay, 6, 7
Yeah.
analysts. And every analyst, the term that you used would, or at least most of the analysts would be sector agnostic, which means they will look at across sector. So maybe the same guy.
In a given period, for a period of 2 year, 3 year, sectors will be divided across them. Like those 6 analysts amongst them will be responsible for certain sectors because being totally sector agnostic then doesn't give you any accountability, right? So, but in a buy side, there is quite a possibility that you keep on revolving. Like
So you move.
So you move from the person doing pharma will start doing FMCG. You were doing FMCG, you start doing pharma. Like it keeps on revolving and moving.
So you said because eventually you want to groom these people and at least some of them will become a fund manager. So you keep on giving them different sectors. So thoda sab kuch seekh lenge.
Right. So like probably there will be 10 key sectors. If like currently I am doing pharma is what 4-5% of the index. Banking like financials and banking is 35% of the index. So if I am to become a fund manager and honestly manage someone's money based on expertise, ideally I should have knowledge of all sectors. Tomorrow, even if I spend 10 years into pharma but I am an expert only on 4% of the index. Now it has its own niche and role in the industry that you need someone who is an expert in pharma when the AMC is large. But if I want to manage a fund holistically and it's not a healthcare fund, it's a overall fund, then as a fund manager, I need to have that expertise on all sectors. So eventually to groom someone to become a fund manager, you need to cover maximum sectors.
Understood.
You will always have your core 1-2 sectors, but you need to know a little bit at least about other sectors as well.
Got it. So you said something very interesting. You said that the AMC or the bosses will eventually want to groom every guy on a buy side team to become a fund manager someday. So is it that every analyst that you're working with on a buy side eventually is targeting to become a fund manager? Is that how everyone is positioning themselves?
Probably yes. Unless and so yeah, so if there is something like a niche now, many times banking as a sector is so vast. Some sectors are really very broad that you need more number of analysts, and there will always be space for a sector specialist there. Even pharmaceuticals is one such place because it's very niche, complex. It's not cars or FMCG or consumer durables that you revolve around with every day. Like okay, even medicines you have every day and banks you deal with, but to understand those businesses, it's really very complex and niche. It's very product specific, at least pharma. So there, few people can be taking a stance that I want to be a career analyst and eventually keep on growing here. But yeah, majority of them I would say would be intending to become a fund manager. Yes, definitely.
Got it. Okay. So, actually, let's go a step back. So we give nice structure to the session. We'll start with you now. So tell us a little bit about, because you're also a chartered accountant, right? So tell us a little bit about how were you when you were in the school? Always like the nerdy guy, then college, then education, and what was your career aspirations when you were a kid?
So I never liked chemistry and I never liked biology. I had decided I don't want to pursue science as a stream after 10th. That's how
Hmm.
I landed up on commerce. Now, when doing my CA articleship, again, the process of elimination, I started doing my articleship in audit taxation. It's nice work, but something I thought that I would not want to be doing it. Like it's not my interest per se to do
Hmm.
it. Therefore, that process of elimination happened, and I started looking what else. Then I came across finance and equity research. That is how I started doing like pursuing CFA.
Hmm.
So that is how it started, and then it's something I liked, I loved, and since then there has been no elimination. Probably सेल साइड करके समझ आया सेल साइड नहीं करना है तब बाय साइड मूव हुआ है
Hmm.
तो you can call that also as process as elimination. But no, frankly, my perception about sell side was very different before I started and by the time I left. So in a way you can say that sell side, it's looked up as a service job, and a buy side job is always looked up at with more respect and profile.
So when you were doing this articleship, by the way, those of you listening, like when you're studying chartered accountancy after your second exam, inter or P2, I don't know what they call it these days, you
I
have a
think
mandatory articleship for 3 years, and then you write your final exams, and then you become a CA. And I think most of the people who, like, I also discovered that I'm not enjoying CA work so much during my articleship. Like I did it for 6 months, and I realized, you know what, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. तो कुछ और ढूंढते हैं. I think that was also the time when I started with CFA studies, more or less same like you. So Achal, like, did you have clarity of thought when you were studying CFA that I want to become a equity research analyst, or did that evolve? Like, where did that love for stocks came from?
love for stocks comes from home.
Hmm.
So I have a family background where investing in stock is like happening.
Hmm.
So that's where the love from it comes from. The love for it also comes from that teenage infatuation and glamour for those big bull investors and what kind of life they are living and how much wealth they have created.
Hmm.
So like the love comes all of it from there. And I would rather say the journey was not CFA to equity research, it was for equity research CFA. That is how my journey per se was.
Wow.
So I was
Fantastic.
very clear on it. So yeah, I had that clarity.
Okay, that's interesting. And then you finished your CA, you finished your CFA, your first job. How? Because what happens, actually, is like we've realized that it's really difficult for people to break into the equity research world, right? I mean, almost everyone would happily take a profile like that, especially you started on the buy side, right? It might have been a wealth management firm, but you started on the buy side. How did you make that happen? Like, what was the secrets of getting your first job?
It happened like I through probably referrals knocking on door. So technically that was not my first job. So while I was awaiting my CA results and my CFA results for the last before that for 4 5 months, I was just working with a boutique investment bank kind of a. It was a lone person individual, bootstrap firm which where we were advising startups and building financial models for them and all
Hmm.
that. So
This
that
was in
was
Pune
my
itself.
this was in Pune itself. So that was a short stint, kind of an internship, you can say, but like not per se an internship. So that I did for 4 5 months, and I was continuously looking out. And it's not that I gave 2 3 interviews, for equity research. And as you said that it's difficult to get in. So frankly, my sometimes ignorance is bliss. I did not even have an idea what sell side is, what buy side is when I was looking for it. My equity research as a concept was very clear to me. Learning to value and study businesses in order to decide whether to invest in them or no. So sell side as an option was not even there for me. So I was only looking at wealth management firms and people in Pune who are doing this. And then I knocked on those couple of doors or three doors, and probably getting in for me was kind of facilitated because my education was in place that time. Probably my passion or my liking or my aptitude for it comes through. But yeah, it is difficult. But now I would say there are, from where even 5 years back to today, I would say even in Pune itself there would be 10 more places doing this thing that then
Right.
there were 5 years back.
That's true.
So if getting in is a problem, get in small, start somewhere, because even after 6 months of being there, you would have done something, you would have learned something. Like, rather than waiting for the best thing there, like, it's okay if you get the best thing, like the proper MNC institutional, that would be the ideal job to start with, right? But it's obviously you won't get in there. So it's always good to start wherever you can, and it has its own uh, like drawbacks as well, because then your pay is not of what you expect, because as you said, the demand supply is a big mismatch, right? The supply is very small, but the demand for these jobs is quite high. So initially you have to deal with it, but as you progress, as you scale up, you build your network, you build your contacts, you crack in someday somewhere. So it happens. So there's no set formula for it. You have to keep hustling. That's how I'll put it.
I like the way you put it, knocking on the doors. I
Yeah.
think that's what I advise people. It's like go and apply to 1,000 places. कोई ना कोई तो call कर ही देगा आपको.
So I've done this. There was an opening on Twitter, and explore all the options. Like, this is my advice. Do not rely only on LinkedIn or Naukri.com. Like, be active on Twitter, be active everywhere, because there are so many PMS and like the small startup asset management firms who put out their openings on Twitter. Like, I had come across one such opening in Bombay, and that guy is a star on Twitter and a fund manager. He had put out an opening saying that looking for this and that, like, I'm looking for someone to work in the equity research firm. So there I contacted officially through a mail. I sent my resume. They asked me to give a project and all that. It did not happen. But while I had traveled to Bombay for that, I just went to BKC, and there was another firm. I walked in with my resume. They were kind enough to give that time and make me and sit me there, and it didn't even happen there. But I'm telling you, like, just do it, keep doing it. That person is still connected to me, and probably now when we talk, it will be at a different level than it was back then. And that
Yes.
time I was not in the right fit, because they were looking for someone senior, and I like, or someone very junior, like, who is interning or something. I wanted a job but as a fresher, so it did not work out then. But yeah, it's completely. And this 4 months internship also that I told you, it was again just knocking on the door. Like, interns का कोई portal होता है for internship.
Internshala.
Let's intern or internshala,
Okay.
something like that too. So I just saw M&A and equity research firms, and I literally just rang the doorbell and I said, I have an interview scheduled here, and he put me in. So
Oh, wow, that's cool.
yeah.
How many people? I wonder how many people do this, Achal. I mean, if you really want something, you can make it happen for yourself. You're a live example in front of us. But how many people would actually listen to this and take the advice seriously and go distributing your CVs in BKC like CV Lelo?
That was one place, and I wouldn't say that it's the ideal thing, but for me it was nothing to lose. It was worth it, right? Because
Yeah,
मैं
of course.
कुछ भी नहीं कर रहा था तब, so might as well, why not this? That's the attitude I went with. But doesn't mean you leave out the formal channels and everything.
Mathematically, the way I think of it is, if your probability of conversion is very low, right? How do you deal with that? You deal with that simply by increasing your sample size. So apply, apply, apply. The more you apply, I think the better your chances get. Okay, so I got it. So that was your first break. You got into a break. You worked there in this boutique firm for how many years?
So for around 1.5 years, so 4 months of that internship, around 1.5 years of working here. in
On the
Pune
buy side, on the smaller
on the
wealth
buy side.
management firm.
Yeah, wealth management.
And you were involved in the wealth management business, or were you working on the PMS business?
On the PM. So they had their own PMS, wherein HNIs put in their money and a fund was made out of it, a proper structured PMS. And
Hmm.
there I was working. So it was pretty sector agnostic. I was like obviously I started with a company and then took up that sector rather than starting with a sector and then looking into all the companies into it. So
Hmm.
that is how it happened. I worked for around year and a half there, and then I
Right.
moved to Bombay. Yeah.
And did you have to compromise on pay because you're already a CFA by then? So I'm sure your market value elsewhere would have been really high, right? So there was an opportunity
Yeah.
cost. So did you take that hit that time, or was it at par?
I so as then it was sold to me, which I still believe, but I would still say the way it was sold to me is I was getting paid to learn. So
Huh. That's fantastic. All my colleagues at FinTree listening to this. Okay.
but yeah, now then when I moved to Bombay, the privilege Bombay kids have, that my first job, uh, my me starting there with them was 2 years down the line after I had qualified, whereas through whatever referrals and network, these guys had started immediately after they passed out there. So yeah, because I entered the system late, there was a gap in the pay scale,
Hmm.
which eventually over the next 3 years was made up. So my growth was higher. Like a good organization will eventually bring you at par with your colleagues, but
Industry, yeah.
the way it works always is your base matters. Nobody is going to give you 20 lakhs when you are already working for someone at 5 lakhs. You have to
Hmm.
gradually progress. 5 ka 10 kar denge, then probably you spend 1 year 2 years, show them your metal, and then probably ask for more. But yeah, so that if I would have been in the system since the day one, I rather took my job in Pune. My definitely my pay would have been higher. So in that way, I did lose out. But would I say that I had to compromise? It was decent. It definitely could have been better, but and I actually learned also. So people, you have a very good financial modeling course, right? So that time I had not done it, but that 4 months internship that I did, I was making financial models for startup. And the first model that I took up, I literally did not know whether to start from the cash flow statement or from the PNL. So I did my financial modeling course there, and I got paid as a stipend there. So it
Hmm. Very good.
actually works, yeah. And I did the practical stuff, so it
Hmm.
helps.
Right.
So
So
I would say do not spend half a decade waiting for that, uh, waiting for
perfect.
someone who pays
Hmm.
you well. But it's okay to spend an initial year or 2 years, trying to, you know like make yourself sellable to someone else.
Hmm. Right. And then 1.5 years at this buy side, then eventually you made the big move, right? And you went to a sell side with a fairly reputed. My understanding is that institution had very strong reputation as top-notch equity research provider in the
Yeah,
country.
yeah.
So you were in the elite team, right? And you probably with the best equity research minds. So how was the transition? How did you feel getting into sell side? Did you feel that your skill set was good enough to match up with your peers or colleagues there?
So as an associate, what I was expected to do, those skill set I had. My financial modeling was good. My accounts was good. My I like I had no problem work putting in hours there. So that way it was not a problem. But I was literally just doing what I was being asked to do for the first 6 months, 8 months. I was lost. And that too, I got into a sector that is pharma.
Yeah.
So learning the rules of the sell side is one thing, and then coping up with your sector along with that is the second thing. So I would say first 1 year I didn't know how time flew. Matlab, like I don't know. So I don't think coping up was a problem, but I was actually not doing anything for myself then. I was just learning what is to be done and how it is to be done. And then probably the 2 years after that, I started adding value to the work I was doing rather than just
Hmm.
doing then
Blindly
what I
doing
was
it.
doing. So yeah, yeah.
How does a chartered accountant uh, who did not like chemistry in the school. Uh, how does one become a pharma analyst? Like I do a couple of pharma companies. In fact, I invited you for my financial modeling class for one
Right, right.
session. I have tough time pronouncing the name of the molecules. Yeah, every time I get them right, मैं 50 बार अलग अलग नाम से same molecule को बुलाता हूँ. How do you like how did you learn it?
It's the same way a BCom graduate probably runs a tech company. Yaar. It's because you
Uh,
need to understand the commercials out of it rather than the product. So if some product is that important, it will come up so many times in your conversation and in your reading that eventually you will master it.
hmm,
And to as equity research to cover pharmaceuticals, वैसे भी कोई कंपनी अपना R&D pipeline नहीं बताती. They tell it, they share it only once it's very close, and
successful,
then they
yeah.
want to give some guidance to the street, or then you know the product that is launched. So the angle to look at it is fairly a commercial angle rather than a R&D angle. The R&D part comes more when there is innovation into it. Like there is no market for the drug, there is no demand for the drug. It's the first time you are innovating something. Then probably, sorry, you need to understand the science behind it and the efficacy and all behind it. Probably there some technical knowledge required, but even that, so everything is pretty simplified in today's world. Like you need that technical knowledge to probably write that report, that efficacy report, but it requires only business, like it requires common sense to read the last line of the report and understand
Hmm.
what's the efficacy level of this drug. And then you have to
Okay.
rely on who to read, who to trust, and what to follow.
Hmm. Very
So
cool. So this sell side work, let's say that I'm an analyst, I'm a fresher kid, CA CFA कर लिया, modeling building थोड़ा बहुत basic आता है, right? Now I want to get into a sell side. What is my beginning designation?
you will be an associate.
Associate.
Unless
And
you are an intern or there is some scheme in the house you are going into that for 6 months you will be probation and then there will be internship, etc., etc. You will be an associate. An
right,
associate helps a analyst. An
understood.
analyst is responsible for the sector.
Got it.
There would be 7 8 analysts covering 14 15 sectors eventually
So
in the
typically two
market.
sectors per analyst.
Right. Everyone starts with one, but as an analyst becomes 3 years, 4 years old in the firm, they start taking up new sectors as well. So
Hmm.
that's how 8 analysts would cover around 15, 16 sectors.
Hmm.
That fairly covers the market. Within these analysts or over these analysts, there will be one head of research.
Head of research. Okay.
So then there is head of equities above that, because like in the brokerage business, there's another parallel vertical of sales.
Correct.
इंस्टीट्यूशनल सेल्स, सो वहाँ पे
Hmm.
सेल्स बनते हो तुम, फिर हेड ऑफ सेल्स होता है. सो हेड ऑफ सेल्स एंड हेड ऑफ रिसर्च आर टू पैरेलल्स. Heading them both is head of equities.
Hmm. And typically, let's say a desi brokerage. Okay, so let's avoid the names, but a desi brokerage. Um, they're building a sell side team. They're hiring a associate. How much will they pay in, let's say, Mumbai on an average?
10 तो देना चाहिए, 10 lakhs probably.
That's pretty good. This is
Six,
for a
six,
fresher.
6 to 10 lakhs, yeah. Hey, no, wait. They see, right? And I know firms who are having associates at even 6, 5, 6, 7 lakhs. So yeah, it depends. A little good Desi firm will give you good 10, 12 lakhs. And actually, like as you scale up, even many of the domestic names pay you well. Obviously
Do
not
they?
as much as the MNCs, but yeah,
Hmm.
to start with, I would say the starting range
Hmm.
uh, is from 5 lakh rupees on the lower side
Hmm.
to a median of around 10 lakhs, I would say. 8 to
Median
12
is
lakhs.
10.
Median would be 10. The median becomes 10 because then I'm moving to the MNCs and bulge bracket who can
Hmm.
even take you in at 2025. So
Correct.
that's why the median
But
becomes 10.
but now I have an interesting question here. If I want to get into an associate level, do the HR community even today have this thing कि हमको MBA चाहिए? Is that still a norm in this world on the sell side?
I don't think equity research के associate के लिए MBA preferred भी होता है.
Fantastic.
I think CA CFA is a good crack for this.
Do you think just CFA is good enough? CFA and skilled, like well learned, not a CA?
CAs would be preferred because CAs have that strong accounting background.
Hmm.
And when I say MBAs are not preferred, MBAs भी है मेरे colleagues, जैसे नहीं है कि नहीं है. So basically there is no one perfect
Rule.
rule without exceptions. So there is exception to everything that we are talking right now. But
Of
generally
course.
generally the norm is chartered accountancy, and yeah, CFA also. So probably when you are doing your CFA, you can start interning with someone. That's the best way to crack into some of these sell side firms, because when you're looking at it from the outside, it looks like a giant fort and how to get in. Once you're an intern, you understand all you have to do is have a good rapport with that person. The hiring
Boss ko
process.
batao.
If the boss, he or she is comfortable with you, they would just want to continue with you, right? So like it's no
Correct.
rocket science. There is no set out process. You want someone to work, you want someone to fill that position. जो भी आंखों के सामने पहले आता है तुम ले लेते हो उसको, उसमें कोई rocket science नहीं है. So being there is more important rather than looking at it from the outside.
There are a lot of people who probably like are not CAs in India today who are studying CFA. There's one bunch of people like you, जो या मेरे जैसे जो CA CFA दोनों हैं, right? But there is a mass there who are not chartered accountancy students who are doing just CFA by themselves. They're looking at it as an independent career. They also want to be an equity research analyst. So if someone is just a CFA and decides to layer up some accounting knowledge on top of it, that is also good enough, right? That's what you need.
Definitely. So my boss, he's one of the best pharma leads on the street there. Like literally amongst the best, like top two. He's a chemical engineer with MBA. His accounts is still weak, but his subject expertise is so good, and he understands basic accounts. That if such and such an event is to happen, will it be EPS accretive, dilutive, EBITDA accretive, dilutive? How will it impact the net worth? What happens to the return ratios? You don't need to sit and do journal entries. You need to just be able to read your financials. Again, it's like chemistry and pharmaceuticals, what we were talking about.
Correct.
You need to learn it smartly. So it's not like it's being CA is not the only way to enter into it. It gives you comfort on accounting. It gives you comfort on modeling, but experience can also do that for you. And but not knowing accounts at all, you cannot survive.
It's dangerous. Yeah, of course.
You cannot survive here. You need to know accounts, but you need not be a chartered accountant for it.
Got it. So, okay. So, associate, I start my job. I work for, let's say, a couple of years. I have 7-8 lakhs of median salary, let's say. Then I become analyst typically in how many years? Roughly 2-3 years?
5 years probably is a good time.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's a fairly long time. And an analyst.
5 years also, I'm being very optimistic because
Is it?
yeah, because I know associates who are there for 7 years, 6 years, 7 years. So the way
So it becomes very steep, huh?
Yeah. So the way it is the designation is very same. Like even I am an associate, like I would be an associate today, and even someone who's starting would be an associate today. But within just even after the designation is same, the difference in the scalability of me and the other person will be quite different. So and also in some houses, brokerage houses, an associate could be drawing more salary than a lead analyst at another firm. An associate would be more experienced and skillful. So don't go strictly by the designation. It's like
Understood.
Yeah, you keep scaling up the way.
Right. So Achal, actually, the reason why I asked this is I want to know, let's say if someone is successful in this space, skilled, motivated, and works for 4-5 years, 6 years, on an average, what kind of numbers are we looking at? Let's say someone with 5 years of sell-side experience, specialist in 1 or 2 sectors. Are we looking at about 30-40 lakhs type of pay for these guys?
Should if you remain on the sell side, definitely, yeah.
Okay. And on an average, sell side pays more than the buy side is what?
Yeah. So they do. So till 10 years of your experience, it's the sell side who pays you more. They just have those budgets to pay you more. Probably as you keep growing beyond the fund manager level, on an industry level today, the fund managers would be drawing better salaries than the lead analyst. Now, again, this rule will have an exception. An MNC lead analyst will be drawing much more than probably even a senior fund manager at a domestic AMC.
Of
So
course.
who your employer is matters quite a bit.
Understood. Okay. And how is the give us your typical day on sales side? What time do you reach office? Do you build new models from scratch or update? What's your typical day like on a sales side?
So on a sell side, your office starts at 8. So you have to reach at 8, and that's when the morning meeting begins. So the markets start at 9:15. Before that, like your morning meeting, like where I was working, our morning meeting starts at 8, and you leave before 7:30. It's a half day. So, so yeah, 8 to 8 is a normal sell side life, and that's normal. When it's result season, when it's peak, it stretches beyond that. Weekends, I would say how your weekends are is a big subjective thing on who you're working with. It's a
Correct.
very individual thing what kind of a boss you're working with.
Hmm.
Some bosses like to keep it strictly over the week. Some bosses do not want to respect those boundaries of weekends. Having said that, whichever category you fall into, how much ever anybody respects the boundaries of a weekend, out of 4 weekends in a month, 1 weekend, one Saturday, so you will be working.
Hmm.
और every weekend एक दो 3 घंटे का कुछ तो काम रहेगा, which you can do it anytime. Now that especially after COVID, everybody has a laptop and you are working flexibly from home. कभी तो करना है. Or something that you will have to catch up yourself only. Like if you want to do something extra, you will end up firing up your laptop on a weekend. So that is what a
Got
sell
it.
side like.
And typically, your day involves reading, updating on quarterly numbers, updating your financial models. What do you do?
So yeah, models. Yeah, so if you work long enough, there will be models that you do from scratch versus the models that your analyst will already give you, and you have to keep updating them. But you need to understand how the model is functioning because you own the model now. As an associate, if you cannot own your model, then you're not doing anything there. That's one important thing. Second thing is there could be presentations that you make for your particular company, for your particular sector, for a client, and
Hmm.
that's the second. Third would be client request. Now the buy side folks are looking at something, want something done, so they give a request to the sell side guys that I need this, can you please provide me this. So those are called
Hmm.
as client requests. So you
Hmm.
have to do that client servicing as well.
Hmm.
So which is also a kind of Excel, PPT, and research work all mixed together.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Understood.
and that's probably when you start as a career. As you keep scaling up, you start writing more. So those
Hmm.
research reports that you see, and we started with our discussion with. So writing is a very big skill in equity research, especially on the sell side, because the difference between a first year associate and a fourth year associate will be a fourth year associate will be end to end managing a quarter call, like a quarterly result. So
Hmm.
he will be or she will be listening to the like updating the result in the model, sending out a first cut to the client. First cut is basically once the results are out, an update as to how the results
Note.
are, what
Hmm.
has happened, then listening to the con call, taking those con call notes, and then what happened during the quarter on the con call, on the management call, and what is our stance on the company going forward because of this. And overall, you have to write a research report at the end of the quarter, like end of the quarter as at the end once they publish the result. And apart from this quarterly result writing, there is other thematic notes also that you have to write. So writing becomes one of a very key thing into sell side work. So, but it's something that you can develop only on the job. Like nobody
Hmm.
can teach you that beforehand, and it's good to like
But you can read a lot of reports to at least
to
get a hang
know
of. Uh,
what needs to be written. Yeah, and
hmm.
trust me, you see that it's just a page written. It takes 4 hours to write just that
Yes.
one page.
Yeah.
Writing is very difficult, and writing is what distinguishes a, a senior associate versus a junior associate. So
Mm.
somebody who is into it, and it's only if you are writing well, your analyst will feel the pinch when you are going.
Mm.
Otherwise एक्सेल का काम तो कोई भी आके वापस कर लेगा, but
Mm.
if you can actually take that load off his shoulder,
Right.
or her shoulder, that you can actually end to end do everything that an analyst is supposed to do, that makes you quite like demanding, like you can be in a very demanding position in the industry then.
Okay, that's insightful. Achal, I have one question that I wanted to know for myself. Uh, I'm very curious to know this. Uh, is there some sort of a herding behavior with sell side analysts? Because every time I read a report, right? So let's say I'm researching a stock. My process is generally I call up people and I try to get 10 odd reports, 5 reports on the same stock. And when I read the reports, it looks like they've just, their models look a copy paste, their forecast looks like they've copy pasted. Is there a lot of herding behavior in the sell side community? Because if you come with an extreme forecast and if you get it wrong, then you're the one who got it wrong. But if you come up with something in line with everyone else on the street, then everyone got it wrong.
So the way I will put it is, it's it's a lot of duplication, right? So see, there's this one company that is doing business, that is performing, that is giving out the same public information to everybody. There will be a very little difference and a little differentiation to what somebody can do it, right, on paper. Like, as far, like, how do you make models? You make models largely based on the guidance and your market understanding. No,
Mm,
your market, like, guidance cannot be very far from the market understanding, which leaves very little scope for your market understanding to make something very extremely different from there. So, okay, you can be gutsy by making estimates very different from that, uh, but the the case to do that will be very little, and it needs to have a thesis. You cannot just make it, right? You
absolutely.
cannot just
Mm,
say that I feel so. You need to have an evidence to do so. So, like, one more thing, any, like, research report that goes through quality checks and goes through a lot of things. So, because that's the view of the house more than the analyst,
correct.
because the analyst respect to the house. So you cannot just write anything that you feel like. You cannot say I feel like this, although many people write we believe so. That's the
Mm,
standard
mm,
language for that. But yeah, it needs to have a solid backing, and when you have limited information or the information parity is same, it's difficult to come up with extreme positions. And more than, I think, not having the guts to do so, I don't see many people would find a reason to do so. Let me put it that way. And when you see when somebody is changing from a sell to buy, no, that's because something has happened there. You can have a contra view, but largely I have seen this, that the numbers remain the same, the view may be contra. And that's why, so when, like, once you are in the industry, you'll understand. You can read a report and interpret it something, and when you talk to that analyst and the one who has written the report, and then take that analyst's opinion on that company, you could come out with a completely different answer. So, because
mm.
your numbers remain the same on paper, but the experience, the knowledge, where you feel the probability of these numbers coming true, is something that is verbally communicated, and that is where the client servicing part comes. So that is why analysts are revered. But not, like, why would anybody pay for that
So
research?
you're saying, sorry, I interrupted you, but you're saying reading a report is not good enough. I think if I want to get the whole sense of it, maybe I should also talk to the analyst to kind of get between the line data.
There can be differences in uh, what somebody feels and what somebody can justify.
Hmm. But I still feel, and this is what I suspect, and it's, I don't have a proof for it, but I feel like there is a lot of anchoring bias that happens in the sell side world. Uh, because very rarely I come across a report where I'm truly surprised by the analyst taking a view and putting his neck out. Most of the time when I read reports, I feel like like when I read the first report, my incremental learning curve by reading the second report is very, very low.
Yeah,
It looks like I've just read the same thing again.
so again, like, अच्छा, ठीक है, nothing, I can't say it here.
ठीक है, fair enough. I'll let you go on that one. Let's talk about careers on the buy side now. So buy side pays are, and you're with one of the top firms in the country now, right? Highly respected, process driven, large scalability. Uh, how are the pays in general on buy side? Typically, where does it start and what's the career progression?
So buy side pays have improved quite a bit over the last 2-3 years. From what I
Hmm.
understand, they were even worse than what they are today, probably even 10 years back. So the
Hmm.
gap between a sell side and a buy side pay is narrowing. I
Hmm.
don't know if sell side needs to improve or buy side needs to stop paying more. I don't know. But yeah, that is what is happening. And but yeah, overall, a buy side, like a buy side will pay you less than sell side, and that's true till you become someone senior. Senior as in till you become a fund manager, where your performance of the fund starts talking about you rather than the number of years of experience on your CV.
Hmm.
So that is when the differences come out. So yeah, till your 30, till your mid 30s, I think a sell side will definitely pay you much more than what a buy side could.
So, which means an ideal career theoretically would be to start on sell side, maybe get 4 or 5 sectors under your belly over the period of 10 years, and
होगा
then
नहीं,
even
सेल साइड में you will never be able to get 4-5 sectors under your belly. Sell side
no
में the
chance.
first job, no chance. Uh, Unless again there are exceptions to everything,
Hmm.
but you start with a sector, you are an associate there. Probably your analyst covers another 1-2 sectors max. You are an associate to that analyst, so you end up having expertise on that as well. Now, when it's time for you to become a lead analyst, you will become one of a lead analyst in one of these only. No, like
Hmm.
if I am doing pharma, chemicals, and oil and gas, there's
Hmm.
no way that 5 years down the line in my career on sell side, somebody is going to pay me what I am getting paid right now to start learning banking. That's not happening.
Hmm.
So sell side में आप जो career पे चालू, whatever
So,
career
which means,
path you
anyways,
start.
after समझ गया मैं. So, anyways, which means after 4 or 5 years, sell side job will become a little boring, right? Because then you've learned a lot about that sector.
But exactly, sell side job is not just learning about the sector. Sell side job is more about servicing the client.
Hmm.
That's the key difference. I probably would, like, I couldn't have explained it before actually explaining buy side versus sell side, but this also answers your question much better than फिर buy side analyst क्या करता है.
Hmm.
Because a sell side job is, as you keep scaling up, becomes more about servicing your buy side client with their
Hmm.
needs, with their requests, by calling them up, talking to them, discussing your view on the sector, on the stock with them, taking work from them, getting it done, putting out those thematic notes, being disciplined about those quarterly notes, models, and etc. It's a lot of service business vis-a-vis buy side, where actually it's only a reading job. A buy side business is a reading and thinking job. There is a very little output that you have to give in terms of notes or thesis notes or anything. That entire formality comes down to a great extent in a buy side role, and so you have a lot of time to think. You
Hmm.
need not put it on paper, but then you cover a lot many more things.
Buy side sounds much exciting job to me though, uh, because I'm getting exposed to multiple sectors, and I'm guessing I would also be so on buy side I will be also responsible for the stocks I didn't buy, right? Because if I missed on an opportunity,
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
जो मैंने research नहीं किया था, but other AMCs bought it. So
Right.
obviously my FM is going to kick my butts and say कि why, how come you missed this stock?
Yeah, yeah. So in pharma, if I'm covering 12 stocks, I'm responsible to service my client on those 12 stocks. So if I'm covering 12
हाँ,
stocks on
researching
sell
हाँ.
side, I am only responsible for those 12 stocks. Even if a client asks me about something about the 13th stock, I can say, yeah, sorry, ये coverage में नहीं है. I can't help you with that. But that's not the case on the buy side. You need to like you're responsible for what you don't know as well.
Hmm. Okay, but that's good. I think it brings in that element of challenge because you are continuously tracking what you own and maybe also looking at the industry, and so you're behaving like an investor, right? Maybe how an investor would think about his own money for a certain
Right,
sectors.
right.
That's cool. And let's say, Achal, now you have a view on a stock. Okay, now you work with a large AMC, so you have a view on a stock. You've fallen in love. You feel that this is a great stock. ये लेना चाहिए. Uh, how is that a given that your decision results into portfolio positioning for that stock, or there's a
So
review process?
the way I understand is it again becomes a obviously there's a process that institution follows, but you have to earn your place there as well. So technically,
Hmm.
when you move to a buy side as an analyst, you're competing with the sell side analysts for your fund
Hmm.
manager's attention.
Hmm.
That's
That's
exactly
an
what's happening.
insight.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly what's happening. And you need to, obviously, those analysts will be servicing you, but they talk to the fund manager as well, right? Because they want their votes from the fund manager as well, which is much more
Hmm.
valuable. So it is you competing with the fund manager. So you have to, and your CIO, you have to be right on your calls. And it's not that first day I go and say I don't like this, please take it out of your portfolio, and I like this, bring it in. That's not going to happen. I need to keep on banging my head there and keep on putting my thesis. I may go right, I may go wrong, my thought can be respected, my calls can be respected. That's something that will play out over a period. You earn your reputation, and that is how it goes. Also, it can happen if you're covering four sectors. Your call for one sector can be much more appreciated, and your calls for the other sector can be totally disregarded. So, what happens is many AMCs have this concept of model portfolio. So,
Hmm.
every analyst, so fund managers to have their own portfolio to track a performance. For analysts, there is a pseudo like a paper portfolio that is a model portfolio, which also have some rules and liquidity rules and etc. etc. So you have to obviously speak out your calls for the fund manager to take actions, but irrespective of whether they do take an action or no, you can do it in your model portfolio. So it becomes a quantitative aspect of I was doing my work right, you did not listen, or this we have done well, but actually my calls never went well. Like the model portfolio is a
Hmm.
testimony to your. But obviously that's not the only thing that's looked at. But yeah, it's one of the things the way it is tracked.
This is new for me. I didn't know this exists, but this is very cool. In fact, because so if I understood this well, let's say fund manager has 10 different stocks. You come and you say, I like these seven, but I think these three could be replaced with something else. So now that becomes your paper portfolio, right? And that is also some sort of a performance evaluation metric for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But actually, I have a fundamental question here, right? And this is a question with more asset management industry and mutual funds in general. See, now if I buy, for example, I'm sitting on a stock right now, pharma stock, you probably know which one, right? We've spoken about it. Um, I know that a couple of quarters were going to be bad. But I still want to sit on it because I know that after that, the runway is going to be phenomenal. So I'll have to suffer through the pain for a couple of quarters, but the runway will be fantastic. In case of AMC business, because your performance is evaluated so closely, uh, you can't take bets like that. So you have to keep on churning your portfolio. So are you allowed to build positioning where there's a short-term pain and a long-term returns to come?
So it depends on what type of a investor firm you are working with. So if you're working with a PMS, or if you're working with uh, someone like, and I won't take names, but someone who in it has it has they have it in them to hold
Hmm.
it for the long term, and they don't care, or they don't have to showcase their quarterly NAV or monthly NAV. It
Hmm.
really doesn't matter. So there are many places out there who do this kind of investing. But as far as most of the institutional names go, where you and me, while deciding where to start our SIP, what do? We see 3 year NAV क्या मतलब 3 year क्या कर क्या है,
Correct.
1 year क्या कर क्या है. So they have to adhere to that. They have to be good on that, because that's what we are looking at, right? We are not looking at what their investment process is. And it makes no sense even for us to look at that process, because who knows how much implementation of that process is happening, even if it's on paper.
That's true.
So we look at returns and return stocks. So yeah, uh, a structural bet can be played even in such large AMCs, and they do hold stocks. But yeah, largely for the large caps, they would want to have a good quarterly, and that is where the analyst job comes, right? Because that's why a day-to-day tracking of things and events needs to be happening. If it was just researching on one stock and then not looking at it for the next 3-5 years, then probably जॉब का नीड ही नहीं होता, फिर मतलब ये प्लेस ही नहीं होता.
Interesting.
So most of the AMCs have their review meetings once a month. Like few lakhs ones will have it once a quarter, but yeah, you have to
Be on the top of the
basically
game every.
strive to make that, have that alpha. So it's all benchmarked to the index. uh, and there are a few out of the box ideas, but largely it is all benchmarked to the index, and within that index, how can you tactically move to generate an alpha? That is what the true game in institutional investing is. There is no outright portfolio concentration and hunt for a big 10 bagger, 100 bagger, and I'm putting 20% of my portfolio in that. Can't ever happen. So
Interesting. This tells me that as an individual investor, maybe you and not you, maybe because you have restrictions now, but all the individual investors have a competitive advantage because they don't have to live by these rules, right?
yeah,
That
so
could be
you
a competitive advantage.
talk to any fund manager, they will be like, yeah, even within institutions, having a 20,000 crore portfolio versus having a 1 lakh crore portfolio makes a huge difference, and it becomes very difficult as the size of your portfolio grows to outperform or generate that alpha, because then you are staring at an impact cost as well to enter and exit any stock. And small caps to become a no for you, because you even having a 0.1% of that stock in your portfolio ends up you owning 5% of that company.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it as the size of the money that you manage grows, performance
It
becomes
becomes
a
more
lot
difficult.
difficult.
But you make more money as a fund manager then.
Yeah, but if you look at it on a global scale, fund managers are in India are not paid at par with fund managers globally, I believe. So look at the asset size in India, AUM size, and look at the salaries that the fund managers draw. It's still better than the sell side, etc., etc. You're still living a good life, but compared on a bips on a percentage basis, I think compared to Western markets, Indian fund managers are drawing lower percentage of the AUM as salaries today.
Okay. All right. My next question. Again, I wanted to know this for quite some time. Uh, so the world is moving towards Web 3.0, AI, machine learning. Uh, how much of machine learning and AI is used in the equity research space today? Because you represent the best of the best that this country has in terms of equity research processes.
So machine learning, that can you can use it for equity trading. You can't ever use it for equity research, right? Like research is an art, I would say. Some aspects of the research are still taken, already being started to being taken over by machines. For example, earlier, like a very basic example, Bloomberg comes up with a transcript of any conference call within 10 minutes after the call,
Mm,
as long as the call is happening in English. Like if there's a bit, an element of any vernacular language in the call, I think it struggles, but otherwise that's there. So imagine a time when that was not the case. Probably somebody would have had to
type
be
it.
typing at a speed at, and what 40 brokerages doing 40, putting in 40 people for the same job, like probably
Mm,
everyone 5 people, because there's so many companies to cover. So something like that. Then, or tracking what is being talked about the company in the market, any social media graph they have, or alerts about the company.
so
For
this is
news,
available on Bloomberg.
news comes very easily. Like if you have the right platforms and the right subscription, everything public that you need to know, comes to you like immediately. There's no effort in that. So more and more of this will happen, and more and more of low end work can start getting automated because of this. But as far as investing as a decision is concerned, I personally believe that it's an art, it's a call, it's a bet that somebody takes, because as I said, eventually sabke paas, like everybody has the same set of information. It's how you, what you make out of that information and what you forecast from that information is what makes a difference. So I think we are far tech, like I believe, I can be wrong, technology always proves everyone wrong, but per se today I believe investing getting substituted by machines is a little far, and there are softwares who are doing it already. I'm not saying there aren't, but I think to seep in and to have a threat to my job, मेरा तो career हो जाएगा मतलब.
Yeah. So yeah, so see a lot of for example, I came across a product recently where they would basically take your earning transcripts. They would take management commentary, their interviews in the newspaper, television, and then they would run some sort of a sentiment analysis on this, and they'll give you a score. कि अच्छा ये opportunity word is being used a lot, so there's a positive score attached with it, right? So these kind of things I see happening, but I still I agree with you. How will a machine learn? And maybe we could be wrong, but how will a machine learn? How to evaluate a management quality, especially without no track record. That's going to
True.
be tough.
A lot of call is on the management, a lot of call is on your understanding of the space, or you drawing parallels about that space with other markets or with other sectors. Probably regulation. Now banking grew exponentially when as regulation started hitting it, because that it made it more structural and more disciplined.
Hmm.
Now probably somebody would want to take a similar call on real estate as well, that as RERA comes in, it will be very good for all the structural players, that uh, it's getting regulated. But I don't know, like probably machines can do that as well. There's no limit to what they can do. They
Hmm.
defeat you in chess, they can do anything. But yeah, I think it's a little far to for it to be very common for people. Matlab.
Hmm. Okay, got it. All right. I'm going to ask my last questions and then start taking audience questions. We've already exceeded our timeline. We're okay with another 15-20 minutes?
Yeah, I'm cool.
Okay.
We started late as well, so I'm okay to give in more time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Achal, I want your view on CFA, CA, and any other certifications that you may or may not have done. Let's start with CA. How useful did you think the whole CA career, CA learning was in the equity research career?
CA, I would say it's one of the toughest things that I've done in my life.
Hmm.
Probably like the clear. I still cannot guarantee you that if I take my exams again, I'll clear it, especially the finals. It
Hmm.
happens once it happens.
Hmm.
So I personally find it very tough, but I would not say it's tough because it's challenging to understand. It's tough to go through that
Hmm.
format of 14 days of exam, 8 papers, 16 days of exam, and those 3 hours long paper, you completing a 5 hour paper in 3 hours, and
Hmm.
covering
Hmm.
that vast portion. So those are the tough parts, and then obviously you need to be disciplined and scheduled about it. So that's about CA, but CA is a very holistic course. I would still say uh, many people say some parts of it are irrelevant, but I personally believe that I haven't seen a course as holistic as CA in the commerce background. Even CFA, like literally, a lot of level two CFA gets taught in CA final SFM subject. I don't know what they call it now, but
वैसे कुछ है हाँ.
or probably not level two, level one, and a bit of level two.
Hmm.
So that's there. Then they teach you tax law. So it CA basically keeps you open to do many things after the degree as well. CFA, I believe it's a very nice process. The curriculum is superb. So I was doing it parallelly. So whenever I needed a break from my CA studies, I used to love reading Schweizer's and CFA curriculum. I have enjoyed it thoroughly. So see, and the testing that the way CFA does is also something I like. uh, MCQs is good. You need not remember everything or learn by heart everything. CFA tests your aptitude and your hard work, whether you have studied enough to know the concepts. I think
Hmm.
that is the way CFA tests you. So that's my take on CFA. Apart from these two, I don't know why, and I hope it does. There is a course CMT,
Hmm.
Chartered Market Technician. I think it teaches technical analysis. I have been personally staring at it, and but I've not been able to do anything about it. Like, my bad. But yeah, that's another course that people can check out. Then there is FRM and all. I shouldn't comment when you're sitting here. Like, you can say two lines about FRM, because I have no idea what FRM is. I understand it's about risk management, and it's for a different set of profiles and roles. But that's that. And yeah, I think, yeah, that's if that's what you wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's precisely what I wanted to know. I have a couple of follow-up questions on top of that. You said about CMT. So my question to you is your AMC making use of technical analysis while taking decisions, or is it pure fundamental?
No, uh, in a it cannot be a part of a process. I don't think so. Although I am not sure about this, a disclaimer, but I haven't come across
So
it
sell side
yet.
doesn't use technical mostly
Sell side have those technical analysts as well to service
to
clients, or
service
to give a
the that
perspective,
segment. Hmm.
but and there are certain quantitative funds also which will use only technical. But
Hmm.
will a mutual fund be even allowed? It can be a part or a complementary thing to your fundamental analysis, but I wouldn't say that it's ever a primary source of
So why do you want to
taking
learn
decisions.
CMT then? Say curious.
I believe it will be a good complementary aspect. Like, if I can understand which way the business is going, and if I can complement it with which way the stock price is going, I think I can crack it even better. That's how I think about it. Because these
Interesting.
two are in the longer term in the same direction, but in the shorter term, for that alpha that we talk of, they can be
Hmm.
varying, the stock price and the business.
Okay. Okay. See, I am not a big believer of technical analysis, right? I say that very openly, proud. And it's not that I never tried it. It's I tried it, I learned it, I studied it, and I tested it. And like whatever little knowledge that I had and skills that I had, I kind of thought it's a sheer waste of time. I personally did not enjoy doing the process as well, and I was under the assumption that most of the institutional investors generally don't make use of technical analysis.
Very true, very true. Unless you're a hedge fund,
Huh.
uh,
Running
which
quant
is
driven
not,
strategies.
yeah, which is not very common in India, but abroad it is.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Uh, Fair enough. I think my questions have dried up. Let's take a few questions from audience.
What are the exits one can have from equity research apart from a fund manager?
Good.
Can there be a P, VC, or investment banking depending on the seniority level?
Hmm.
So yeah, so as far as sell side is concerned, sell side share, the two exits that I've seen so far in my whatever short stint I have had is one, moving to the buy side from sell side to buy side, or moving to the corporate. Now, sell side lead analyst of a sector is very much welcome, and in a company, in a listed company in that space, as that company's investor relations manager come the strategy head, because
Hmm.
that person has a holistic knowledge about the sector. So an IR and a strategy role, that is a very viable and a good exit option for the sell side guys, and buy side is the second. uh,
Exits
PVC,
from
you
sell side.
can, yeah, you can pivot in an early stage. uh, I have seen a few people doing that, yes, from the buy side also, but these are exceptions. Will my answer be no, you cannot do it? For nothing, anything is possible as long as you are ready to adapt and learn. but these are exceptions. But yeah, at an early stage, a lot of it happens. From sell side to investment banking, ठीक है मतलब अगर it is again very seldom.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, it can happen. So yeah.
अच्छा उल्टा भी होता है क्या कि फॉर एग्जांपल
हाँ
लेट्स से
होता है.
I am working in industry or I know I have experience of let's say pharma for 5 years. Can I come into equity research?
Definitely, many analysts do. So so there is an analyst in a certain sector in a current broking house who was an IR of a company for 10 years. We, not just IR, other functions in the company have come into equity research. Even that happens.
That's insightful. Let's take a few more. You can also choose, by the way, if you like a
Yeah.
specific question. Okay, there's a common question few people have asked. Engineers are like, should engineers be doing CFA and like, do they get jobs in finance?
Yeah. Uh, but I would say for engineers, shouldn't like I don't know. I'm thinking out loud. I think your insight here also. Uh, for engineers, wouldn't MBA be a more viable option? Because obviously, and I mean MBA from those top schools where networking happens, where other insights apart from just business and finance knowledge comes in. CFA is a course. CFA gives you the comfort of being at home and finishing it off without much opportunity cost, which can give you an entry into the financial side. But I think for a longer term value add, I think MBA would be more beneficial. I don't know.
Even if equity research is the end game, then also MBA is better.
And then I think CFA would be much
So
better.
maybe investment banking,
Yeah,
client facing role करना है तो MBA कर लो.
right, right,
But if you want to do research driven work, then
right.
maybe get the skills. Okay. Atish, that's a fantastic question. Do buy side people, like institutional buy side, hire freshers?
Uh, some institutional buy sides do go to colleges campus as well, so it's not that they don't. In fact, uh, many of them do. Some on programs. So again, I wouldn't want to name anyone here, but
Hmm.
yeah, many of them do. They come to colleges. They have their summer internship programs.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, there are quite a few. Yes.
Okay. Uh,
But then you have to decide whether you want to start your career directly from the buy side or from sell side to buy side. It's a big debatable topic. There are numerous factors about it, as you were saying, and I think because I interrupted, you couldn't complete that. That ideal trajectory should be working on the sell side till your 30s or whatever for a better pay, and then uh, pivoting there. So,
like timing the market.
yeah, pretty much. Buy side, unless like you'll have to wait it out, I believe. Like not all buy sides pay you really well. So unless you are very lucky to get into a buy side that's also paying you well while being a fresher and is like keeping your growth and bonuses also well, I think the better way to do it would be to build a respectable base on the sell side and then move. Also, if to get expertise in a particular sector, a sell side is more useful than a buy side because you work a lot deeper into something when you're on the sell side, I would say, because buy side your scope increases. But it can be there again, it can be the other way also. It's a completely subjective thing that I personally think, and probably I have walked down that path, so I may be biased towards it. But yeah, also in sell side also you need to time it perfectly because it will be very rare that somebody who is 35 and 40 years old at those salary levels, anybody is going to take you in at the buy side unless you are moving as a career analyst, which again is a very narrow 4 or 5 places in the industry take that. And that too, you need to be on the top of the sell side to be able to crack it there. Because nobody wants to take you in at 35 and 40 at those salary levels and peg you to a sector. At
Hmm.
that age people want fund managers if they are paying that much. So that move to the buy side also needs to happen at an early level, wherein you can grow up to become a fund manager by that age. So that is also an aspect one should remember.
All right, Hachal, last question for the day. In
Yeah.
fact, two questions. There's a question from Mayank Gupta, and I'm going to kind of build layer on top of it. See, there's a tendency I've seen a lot of students, right, these days in India, they take CFA along with their graduation in the final year, study CFA full time, maybe along with graduation, they pass CFA Level I. Then I see this strange tendency where they also want to do their Level 2 full time. Right? So they decide that I will sit at home for 6 months, I will study. Once let me get done with my Level 2, then I'll get into job market. And then some people take it to extreme, they do Level 3 also full time. What is your advice to these? Do you think that's a good way to go about it, or do you think even after Level 1, people can get jobs in the industry?
It depends on what your other complementary graduation is, right? Uh, if you're doing BCom and level 1, so you'll get a job of that caliber. Matlab, like again, everything has
मतलब
exceptions. I'm saying
बीकॉम की आप इज्जत उतार रहे हो? Like
आप
BCom
ही
and
बोलो मुझे मतलब
I'm a BCom.
तो मैं भी हूँ, but did I say I'm a CA CFA BCom? No, right? Even in the introduction you have put CA CFA. Did you put BCom?
Good point.
So मैं कुछ नहीं बोल रहा. I'm just telling you the way people perceive it. For me BCom is also great. So yeah. So I would say you can do your CFA, you can take your CFA exams while working. I think that's so. Personally, although I entered the job market only after I completed all my 3 levels, but that was because I was doing my CA side by side. So it happened so that मेरा हो गया before. मतलब CA के पहले तो I was not going to start working because it takes a lot considerable different dedication. Uh, but yeah, I have many colleagues who do complete their CFA while they are working. It's completely fine.
Okay. So no fixed rule on that. All right, final one. Achal. Give us a list of books that maybe we can read, or maybe some movies. Primarily books, but also movies or television shows that you are into these days.
So these days, so I'm watching Shark Tank. I had missed out. But
Acha.
I'm
The whole
watching
country is doing that.
I'm watching the Indian version of Shark Tank these days. That's what I'm watching. Books, I would say, if you want to, 100 Baggers is a book that personally I love. Matlab, that's one very simple, plain, good book that I love. Apart from that, there are those standard intelligent investor and all that. Those are like the Bible of investing and all. Some few, but I like there are definitely books. The Peter Lynch one is also good. It's a trilogy, I guess. Uh, I've read one or two out of that, and then there are few people you can follow as their blogs. So
Okay.
if you basically, it's not just about equity research. I believe that tendency and that aptitude for investing and understanding asset value needs to come in. So overall, to build that financial acumen, it's okay to read books out of finance as well, like something on the fence, like a very popular book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. So that explains you a lot about investment without it actually being about investment, I believe. Like, or The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, I guess. That these are some, like, this is what I've recently read. Then for any research professional, Deep Work by Carl Newport. That's a very good book to read. Uh, I think, yeah, Baki, keep reading. Yeah, like there's no finite list of things to read. You can never have enough of reading. Also, I think it's very useful to follow nice people. If
You said about, so which people are you following?
so, I actually don't see the names I'm following. I will actually have to open my list and see, but somehow my feed throws up all the good
So
blogs
this is
and
on Twitter. This is on Twitter or
yeah, everywhere. Like Twitter, link Twitter or LinkedIn ही है. Instagram पे I don't think any such stuff pops up.
Hmm,
Yeah, so it's largely Twitter and LinkedIn. Yes.
fantastic. All right. So with this, Achal, once again, thank you very, very, very much for doing this.
So thank you for this.
Uh,
I think I've never spoken in front of so many people before. Like great
you're a great
participation,
speaker,
great
and
audience.
now I want you to start teaching with us as well. I think no, because I see last time when you took a session with us, I wasn't there, right? I was traveling that time. Then I came back, I saw your video, and I loved it. And I learned so much about pharma space with just that 1 hour session. So we want to have you again and again. So do come and teach side by
Sure,
side
in fact.
once in a while, whenever you get time. Do it. No
Yeah,
worries.
yeah. Sure.
All right.
Cool.
So
Thank you, everyone, and
thank
thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much. By the way, all the financial modeling people, we are a little late. We're supposed to start at 6. We'll start now at 6:25. So about 15 minutes from now. All right. Achal,
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you. See you, and
All
happy
right.
Gudi
Have a good
Padwa
one.
to everyone.
Yes.
Bye. See you.
Thanks.